Welcome to this joint conversation between me, Kate MacDonald, Handheld Press, and Lucinda Gosling of the Mary Evans Picture Library. We're going to be talking about book covers because an awful lot of the Handheld Press book covers come from Mary Evans. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is a pair. We've got two Arthur Rackham covers. We've got Sylvia Townsend Warner, Kingdoms of Elfin, and we also used Arthur Rackham for not the sequel, but another collection of her fantasy stories of cats and elfins. Now, when I was putting this book together, First Kingdoms of Elfin, it came out about a year earlier than Cats and Elfins. I wanted fairies on the cover because the book is about fairies, but I didn't want peely-wally, stupid, girly little girl pictures with pink and butterflies and flowers. I really wanted something darker and a lot more edgier because that's what these stories are about. And I think I searched myself in the Mary Evans website because it's really good for searching. Anyone can go in and just start rootling around keywords, see what comes up. And to my amazement, this picture by Arthur Rackham came up, and I didn't even know he did fairies because I'm used to his slightly more whimsical images.
Well, you know, if you want sort of spooky, dark, exquisitely drawn fantasy, he's the master, isn't he? Mary Evans Picture Library, he's actually out of copyright now, but for many years we represented his estate and still obviously have a large collection of images by him. And I think it was interesting, I think you said to me before that Sylvia Townsend Warner would have probably grown up with that, and the Midsummer Night's Dream that was published in 1908, so that would sort of work out about.
Yes, it would. I mean, she would have been early teens, I think, then. I forget her date, so she would have known the images. I don't know, and she did write something whimsical about fairies in 1926. That was almost one of her first publications. It was an essay about where elfindom came from, or the kingdom of Elfin. And then she went on in 1920, in the same year, to write Lolly Willows, which is about witches, and then didn't come back to fantasy until 1970. So there was a 50-year gap. But still, I mean, Rackham, it works really well. And we got Neil Gaiman to endorse it, which was just astonishing, having an email from Neil Gaiman arriving on a Saturday morning. Duh.
Fantastic. Well, I would imagine he's an Arthur Rackham fan.
I think so, yeah. And he's about 10 years older than me, I think. So like me, he would have grown up reading Kingdoms of Elfin. So through a mutual friend, he was delighted it was coming back. So to have Arthur Rackham on one, then we needed, when we brought out the second Warner collection, to have Arthur Rackham on the second. And this one, I wanted someone emerging from the water, because one of the stories in this collection, which is like the other random fantasy short fiction that Warner wrote that I managed to track down, there's one about a dryad, a woman who turns into a tree. And I wanted something to reflect a really quite disturbing female figure in amongst nature. And then we have this picture of Undine by Rackham, which isn't strictly from this, it's not really reflected in the stories, but the mood certainly is. Can you tell us more about this Undine picture? What does it
I don't know very much about it at all, actually. I mean, Rackham was principally, he was published in very expensive, expensive gift books, which were incredibly popular around the turn of the century, well, towards the end of the 19th century and into the early 20th century. So when we talk about Sylvia Townsend Warner seeing it, you would have to be from a family that could afford those sort of books, because they would have tipped in plates, published an expensive 3 or 4 color process, as opposed to a more affordable kind of picture book that might have been printed by lithographs. So what Mary and Hilary did was assembled and collected a large number of those golden age books by illustrators, and Rackham naturally took his place among them. And his spookiness made him slightly stand apart from other illustrators who he was a contemporary of. As you know, I've been researching and writing about John Hassel recently, and I found a letter by Rackham in the Hassel
Oh.
archives too. And what he'd been requested if he could submit a picture to the Society of Humorists exhibition.
Oh.
And Rackham very politely declined, saying he didn't think he had anything funny.
Oh.
and yeah, I know. So, you know, this sort of this spookiness, sort of using, you know, taking on themes from quite dark themes and mythological subjects was definitely what he did best.
Yeah, and
I
it's
mean, probably the
strange.
most light-hearted stuff is the Pickwick Papers and things like that.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, and he was kindly mocked for that by a lot of the other illustrators to whom humour came much more easily.
Yes, yeah. You can see it in the Kingdoms of Elfin cover. There's some strange little miniature fairies at the bottom, which you see. Oh yeah, this is the Rackham I'm familiar with, like the flower fairies type.
Yeah.
Which I see, because when I was growing up, I completely missed the dark and spooky Rackham. I obviously wasn't exposed to that kind of work. So yes, it does not come as a surprise that he couldn't really do comedy. I mean, I think Heath Robinson, no, Arthur Rackham and Heath Robinson, no, just not going to work. Anyway, very, very suitable for Sylvia Townsend Warner stories.